How's it going? This is Fox back again. This is going to be a review and demo of Output Substance. It is a bass playing synthesizer thing that you run inside Contact. I've just been fiddling around with it. I had a good go of it the other day to get to grips over the controls and how it's laid out for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the presets first, talk about how the preset browser works, and then I'm going to show you a bit more in depth to the interface and how you can change the presets up and even design your own sounds from scratch. So, as I said, it's called Substance. It's predominantly, or it's sold as a bass sampler. It is a sampler because it works inside Contact. So, if you know how to dive into inside Contact and get under the hood, you could work out how it's all laid out. There's just loads of different multi-sample bass instruments in there, ready for you to play. This one was called Fat Bastard, but I've just been messing around with it. So, talk about some presets. At the top here is your preset browser. If you click on it, it opens it up. If you've seen any of my videos on Signal and Exhale, then you'll sort of be able to use this straight out of the box. It's very similar architecture to how it's designed. The four main macros that they tend to assign things to help you control the sounds up. But yeah, as with the other two, as I said, it's all categories. So let's say we wanted a hybrid dirty sub. Choose one called Wobble Step. Once you chose your preset, if you go to the main page, they automatically map these four macros, the four main macros. If you click on them, you can see the map in here. This is where you can dive in and change what parameters are assigned to each macro. This is macro 1 slots. Macro 2, there's only 2 parameters. Macro 4, there's 4 parameters. Macro 3, there's 6. You've got an option of 6 different parameters that they assign to these macros for you to play with. So if we come out the macro page again. So yeah, this is the original sound. You can change the shape. It's blending between waveforms using filters. It's increasing the pulse engine. It's the same sort of pulse engine that you get with side Signal, and also the one that works in Exhale as well. It's then their sort of niche, if you like, this pulse engine that they've designed. It's virtually just an LFO come step sequencer that you can use to control different parameters. This brings a sub in or out. As it says sub, you can rename these macros anything you want when you're inside the editor. Not anything you want. You've got a list of things that you can name it. But yeah, that's pretty much how they're laid out. You pick a preset, play it. From the main page, you can turn them off and you can change the volume of the different parts. Some really cool presets inside here. If you just want to use it as a preset playing machine, just drag and drop presets in. Loads and loads to choose from. Every single category has a lot. I don't know exactly how many presets there are, but there's a lot. I'm guessing there's going to be 1,000, if not 1,000, very close to it. So let's try another one. Let's try a huge dirty pad. Some of these are quite airy. I would imagine there's a filter in this one. Bring the pulse in. There's a delay on that. Sub. That is linked to the distortion, obviously more or less reverb. Very easy to then just go and with a few fine adjustments of these macros start creating your own sounds. So yeah, let's choose a couple more before I go ahead and start explaining. Let's go for a pluck. Choppy pluck. You have to wait for the samples to load. That's the only thing. Sometimes there's, well, look, that was 424 megabytes. So. Future bass is sort of plucked there with a long release on the envelopes. You get the idea of it. Clear. You can assign presets to your favourites or user presets are stored in these two banks at the here when you start designing your patches yourself. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll talk you through. I believe the init is at the top. So yeah, you can initialize the patch as you would imagine. All that does is a clean sub for one part. There's 3 separate parts. So how we go about changing the different parts is I've just clicked on that sub part. Then you have all the different sections inside the sub part. At the top here are your different categories. You've got simple synths, which is like your analog basic synths. Let's try a dual triangle. Sounds more like a saw wave. That's a good basis for a starting point. So if we click on the next section, click on it again. Let's try a low brass and a woodwind, a solo tuba for this layer. Click OK to load it. We're going to go into the edit page in a minute and mangle all these around. We'll bring this third section in. Let's try something from Organic Hybrids. Let's try Cerebus. So that's pretty much how you choose all your 3 parts. You've got, as I say, you've got volume control and the option to turn each part off individually with these on and off buttons. We're going to have all the volume on full for now. It's just the raw samples playing through the machine there without any modulation. If you go into the edit page, you then have control over the amp envelope on each separate part. So say we wanted to make the first part just a pluck. If we solo it, make it stereo, pitch it down an octave, bring the second part in, make this a pluck also but slightly longer, pitch this down an octave as well or bring it back to 0. If we control click, we'll keep this one narrow, bring the next one in, we'll let that one keep extending all the way through. Control click, bring that up an octave. So basic controls over the amp and general controls over transposition. You can pan each section as you would imagine. You've got the choose of the stereo spread, whether it's in stereo, or you can boost it even more to make it wider. Basic sample start, if we solo it, obviously because they are samples, you can change the sample start point, choose whether it's monophonic or polyphonic, and choose legato modes for each individual layer separately. So we've made a real basic sort of plucky sound there just by choosing our samples and doing a tiny little bit of modulation via the amp envelopes. You can then go into the EQ section. Each one has a dedicated EQ if you would like to do that. If you wanted to enhance the low frequencies of one, click on the low section. It's a tri band if you like, so you can real boost the lows. If we wanted to increase the mid section of this, choose the mid section. This is then a bell curve. You can change the Q as you would imagine to make it narrow or wide. Very, very easy. Start making sculpting the sound even more. You then have a global EQ if you so wish, if you wanted to boost the mid section again. Bring out some more of the highs. So, main page, edit is your amp envelopes, EQ is the EQs for each indoor part individually. You don't have to use them, you can use all three at once or any way that you want. And then a basic global EQ. Once all of these three sounds have then been mixed together, this is when you start processing with the global EQ and then the filter. So again, each individual part has its own filter as well as a global filter. Same with the EQs. So yeah, you can apply a low pass filter. If we solo it, let's try and make it even more of a pluck. Make it really low. You then have a dedicated ADSR envelope to the filter for each one. If you click it, turn it on. This is destination amount, so we're going to open the filter up. This is taking care of the real low end part of the sound as it is. So we'll bring in the next layer, apply the same low pass filter, bring in the ADSR. Change the filter types in this section here. We'll make this one a more steeper low pass. Bring in the last layer. Let's pitch this layer back up actually. Go back to the filters. Bring in the ADSR envelope for this one. As you can see, very, very easy, very well structured. The signal flow goes left to right, so once you've then applied filters to all three, if you want, you don't need to. I think I'm just going to leave the filter on this last one. Is that turning the filters off? So yeah, signal flow exactly the same as any other subtractive synthesizer. They've worked it really well from left to right. Once you've done your filtering, then you can go into the effects. This is where you can really start to make the sound stick out. This distortion is excellent. You've got distortion per voice again, if you like, or per sample. Real simple, just 2 gain control for each one. We're going to use the dirt. You can use all 3 together. Add some low end grit. Let's try a bit of compression on the mid part. Bring the mids out again. Let's also try some distortion as well. Let's try a bit of saturation, some tube on this one. Try a bit of delay on this one. Everything's automatically synced to the clock. The effects, so every single section has the same effects. You've got the distortion, the motion. This is, you can change between a chorus, phaser and a flanger, or often called modulation effects. You've got basic controls again, depth, speed, the phase position and the dry wet mix of each one. Pitch, this is like to create a bit of a vibrato, or you can just have a basic pitch envelope. if you wanted to add some real percussive. We solo this section. We'll just add a real basic click to that part of the sound. If we wanted some pitch modulation on this one, so we wanted to add a bit of vibrato, you can use this flutter. Very subtle, because it's a bass thing. You only got this flutter between the low end. You can add a bit of extra grit using that pitch modulation. We'll keep that plucky one on, we'll turn it off that. So yeah, then you've got a basic compressor, a delay and reverb, as you would imagine with just the basic controls. Not tons and tons of effects. We do have the global effects at the bottom that you can apply to everything at the end. Same controls with what you had on the ones inside the boxes. So we can apply some global distortion. We can choose something a little bit better. Let's try Tweed A. Clip inside this thing. Anytime you add any form of distortion or anything, it really boosts the gain. So this is a real deep crappy bass that I'm making here, but it is showing you all the different things you can do. You then have the rhythm section. I'm going to go ahead and initialize this. Let's just quickly choose something that's quite sustained. Let's go from the simple synths, a dirty saw. Really sound like a saw. Sounds more like a subby triangle wave. But yeah, we'll introduce another section here from the complex synth. Let's try a growler. It's like a moogie sort of sound. So yeah, now we go to the rhythm section. The rhythm section is again per voice or per layer. So if we wanted to choose one for, we'll turn that chorus synth off. So we wanted one for the layer sends. So you can choose to wobble the filter if you like, the bite for the distortion or the volume, and these are your sends, plus or minus. You just click on it, drag it up. So if I bring it positive, then this LFO in the rhythm section at the bottom is controlling the volume. So we can change this to saw wave, or you can you can choose between any of the basic waves. You've got sine wave, triangle, square, forward ramp, downwards ramp, some sinusoidal sort of shapes, some parabolic curves, some squarified sine waves, and yeah, just basic shapes that you're going to want to use. You then have control over the rate, which is set by clock division. You've got dotted and triplet measurements in there as well. It goes all the way up to 8 bars. As you can see, you can get some very cool long modulation if you wanted to use this to make some real basic pads. Keep it on 8 notes for now. As well as the simple waveforms, there are complex waveforms. Some crazy things. You can draw your own shapes in if you go to the custom section. right click to draw these lines in. If you wanted to make a sort of very common for dubstep sort of sounds, like a one cycle and then a double time one at the end. Again, change the rate to something a bit quicker. So as well as the volume, you have the filter, cut off, resonance. Byte is the distortion. These are classed as layer sends, so you can choose between the volume, the byte, the cutoff, and the resonance per layer. So you can also do the distortion. Everything's bipolar, so you can set it swinging each way of the axis, whichever you see fit. Yeah, then as well as the LFOs, whether you choose a simple waveform, an exaggerated waveform, or draw your own shapes, you then have the choice of swing, bipolar again, make it bunch towards the end of the bars, or slacker. You then have a choice to re-trigger the envelopes every time a new note is pressed, rather than free running. You can change the shapes via these buttons at the bottom to cycle through them. You can then choose between a step LFO. I wish this opened up into a bigger screen, really. Once you click it to a step LFO, you then got choice of these patterns. There's a fair few to choose from. Some classic. You really need these on at a faster rate, something like 16. You can then go in there and dive in here and change the velocity, the volume, peaks of these, or you can just go ahead and draw your own shapes in. This flux, if I'm honest, I don't know what this does. This is the only feature what I wasn't too sure about, and I was intending to look at it before I did this video. No idea. I will look into this, and I'll do a link in the description to another video when I work out what this flux is. Sorry about that. My bad. So yeah, step sequencer, all the different wave and the LFOs. This is your rhythm section, and then you can control it via the sends in this box in the rhythm section. As well as this, if we turn the rhythm off altogether, have an arpeggiator, a fully fledged arpeggiator, all different patterns. Again, you can choose from the patterns in this box here. Choose the ray, zigzagger, or chord. I'm monophonic, so that won't work. Change 2 octaves. Change the rate again in this box at the end. You get the general idea. It's a real basic arpeggiator. Still a fully fledged one in my eyes. It's got everything you need. You've got the different ways. As played is a clever one. Obviously, whichever order you play and then holds the keys down, it's going to cycle through them in that order to whichever pattern that you choose. You then got dotted and triplet functions as well for some skippy offbeat rhythms. Yeah, yeah, Arpeggiator. Then have the macros, which we sort of brushed on earlier. If we go into the macros section, if we come out of the Arpeggiator, the main section, this is the macro slots. This is where you can assign different things to the different slots. So yeah, you could control the rhythm, speed, filter cutoff, assign them to these sliders, give them all different names. I'm trying to remember how you do that. Navigate to any page and select a parameter. Oh yeah, so once you press the macro button, click on the macro that you want up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. You then go back to whichever page you are to assign things to this. As you hover over it, assigns it. So say I wanted to assign that to macro 1, right click on it, go to your macro page, we've assigned it. Now it's in there. If we go back to the main page where your macros are, it's boosting the low frequency of that EQ on that middle sample. Most common thing for these is going to be effect sends and filters and stuff, so you can sort of change the patches up via time when you're sequencing them inside your DAW. But yeah, it's got everything that you need. The samples in here are really, really good, high quality. They do tend to break up a bit if you're boosting them at highs, which is common, but it's not something that's going to do your head in because they've all got EQs and stuff and compressors to tame them anyway. But yeah, bearing in mind it does everything work inside Contact. The geezers over at Output do a really good job with these. The samples are always really, really high quality. So very much the same structure to Signal and Exhale, which are their two other projects which they were good enough to give me as well. So yeah, this was going to be a review, but it's turned out more of an overview and a demo really of the basic features of this. I'll probably just show you a few more presets. I've lost my preset browser there. Let's quickly look at a wavy pitch effect. Most of these are monophonic, so it's going to cut off and the legato or whatever will come into play. Let's clear that. Let's try some more of these pads. I really like these pads. I haven't figured out a way to assign things to a mod wheel, which is very strange. You think as well as the macros, the 4 macros. I mean, I know we could map these macros to the controller. Let's try that quickly. So we would need to in Ableton configure the 4 macros, hit MIDI map, assign these to 4 controllers on my MIDI controller. Much at all. Let's try and find another sound with some more movement in it. Let's try a pad drone. See, very easy to map my macros to it. I would like to be able to assign a mod wheel because generally if you're playing with your right hand it's easier to do a mod wheel. But yeah, all in all, I should have had that on the screen so you could see what I was doing. a very, very capable bass playing machine, and capable of so much more in regards to that you don't have to go down bass territory, because you can pitch everything up quite high. In the edit section, we can transpose everything up a couple of octaves. You can use the samples to create your pads, plucks, leads, whatever sound you want. You've got a lot of control over the amplitude envelope, the way that you can set these sounds up. So yeah, that is Output Substance. Hope you enjoyed this. There will be more tutorials to come on this once I've got to grips with it. I'm going to make a few patches, show you really what you can do with this. But yeah, please subscribe if you enjoyed this or any of my other tutorials. As always, thanks for watching.